Hey there and welcome back. You guys know we love digging into the stuff you send us, and this time you've sent us a real gem.
Ooh, tell me more.
It's a Harvard Business Review article all about stress testing your business strategy.
I love it already.
It's called Stress Test Your Strategy,
Yeah.
the 7 Questions to Ask. It's by Robert Simons from way back in November 2010. But trust me, the insights in this article are timeless. So we're going to unpack these 7 questions together. We'll see how they can help you, whether you're leading a company or a team or even just planning your next big project.
What's fascinating about this article is that it's not just for seasoned business folks. These questions are designed to really challenge anyone's thinking.
Yeah.
And make your plans more robust. It's about asking those tough questions that we often avoid, right?
Exactly. It's about being prepared. So let's just dive right in. Question number 1. Who is your primary customer? Now, you might be thinking, well, shouldn't I try to serve as many customers as possible? But this article argues that focusing on one primary customer can actually lead to greater success.
Yeah, it's about being laser focused, right? On understanding and meeting their needs exceptionally well, even if it means making tough choices about who else you can serve.
Right, and they actually use McDonald's as a great example. Remember back in the 80s and 90s when they were all about rapid expansion? Well, their primary customer back then wasn't actually the everyday burger lover. It was, get this, real estate developers and franchise owners.
Wow, interesting. So that focus on expansion, it led to incredible growth, right? McDonald's opening thousands of new stores every year. But then by the early 2000s, their same store sales were declining, and they realized something needed to change, right?
Yeah. Their new CEO, Jim Cantalupo, he made a big shift. He shifted their focus to the individual consumer.
Okay.
So they made the individual consumer, the person buying the burger and fries, their new primary customer. And this changed everything. They started tailoring their menus and even store designs to local preferences, like they're offering soup in Portugal and porridge in the UK.
It's brilliant, right? So this shift led to 81 consecutive months. Can you believe that? Of same-store sales growth, proving that identifying the right primary customer is essential.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know what? That contrasts with Home Depot. They tried to serve both individual consumers and professional contractors at the same time. Guess what?
What happened?
It did not go well.
No.
So their attempt to be everything to everyone just ended up confusing both groups, right?
Yeah.
Consumers felt neglected and contractors weren't getting the specialized services they needed. It just didn't work.
So the takeaway here is that trying to please everyone can really backfire. It can dilute your efforts and ultimately hurt your business.
So think about your own work or your projects. Think about your own goals. Who is the one person or group whose needs should drive most of your decisions?
Yeah, and remember, this primary customer can change over time, just like it did for McDonald's. But, it requires a conscious decision and a restructuring of your approach.
Yeah, it's not just about putting it on your website or saying we serve everyone. It's about making tough choices and focusing your energy where it matters most.
That's so true.
Okay, let's go to question number 2. This one delves into your core values. How do your core values prioritize shareholders, employees, and customers? Now, this isn't just about having, a nice mission statement on your website. It's about understanding who comes first when tough decisions need to be made.
Right, it's about having a clear compass to guide your actions, especially when facing ethical dilemmas or unexpected challenges,
Yeah, absolutely. Because different companies prioritize these stakeholders differently, and those choices have real-world consequences. Take Merck, for example. They voluntarily pulled their blockbuster drug Vioxx off the market because of unforeseen health risks.
Right.
This decision cost them $2.5 billion in annual revenue, but they felt it was the right thing to do because their core value was putting patients first.
Wow. And how does that contrast with, say, Pfizer?
Well, Pfizer had a similar situation with their drug, Celebrex.
Okay.
They chose to keep it on the market with a warning label, prioritizing shareholder value over potential patient risk. Neither decision is necessarily right or wrong. Right.
Yeah.
It depends on the company's core values and the specific circumstances.
And their priorities, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have companies like Southwest Airlines, known for putting their employees first.
Right. They believe that happy employees lead to happy customers, which ultimately benefits shareholders.
Absolutely.
And, they actually have the track record to prove it.
They do.
Now, sometimes trying to balance too many priorities can really backfire. Like in the case of Fannie Mae,
Okay.
they were trying to both help disadvantaged customers and maximize shareholder value, and these goals just ended up clashing, and it contributed to their eventual downfall.
Yeah. So the key takeaway for you here is to clearly define your core values, right?
Yeah,
And understand how they prioritize different stakeholders. That's going to help you make consistent and ethical decisions, even when you're under a lot of pressure.
exactly. Now, let's move on to question 3, and this one hits close to home for many of us, I think. What critical performance variables are you tracking? In today's data-driven world, it's so tempting to measure everything. But this article argues that focusing on too many metrics can actually harm your progress.
It's like that saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, right?
Yeah.
If you're tracking too many things, you might miss the really important signals, like those signals of success or failure. The article calls this information overload.
I love that, the problem of information overload, right? They give this great example of Citibank.
Yeah.
They introduced this new scorecard system with a ton of metrics to track. What happened?
Tell me.
Well, it created confusion, it led to fudged numbers, and ultimately they abandoned the whole system.
Wow. So the core issue here is that management attention is a very limited resource. Every new metric you track is taking away attention from something else, potentially something much more crucial.
Yeah, and this is where it's important to identify those few variables that really signal success or failure for your chosen strategy. Think of Amazon, which is super focused on metrics like revenue per click and revenue per page turn.
Yeah, or Nordstrom, which prioritizes sales per hour and revenue per square
Ooh,
foot.
those are good. And even Marriott, with its massive global operations, focuses on just a handful of key performance indicators.
Like what?
Things like associate satisfaction, guest satisfaction, revenue, and something called RevPA.
Now, for those who are not familiar with the hospitality industry, what is RevPR?
Yeah, that's a good question. RevPR stands for Revenue Per Available Room. It's a key metric that measures how efficiently they're utilizing their hotel rooms.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. So the point is, rather than tracking everything under the sun, focus on those vital signs of your business, those metrics that directly reflect the health and success of your strategy.
I like that. Vital signs. Okay, I'm ready for number 4. Hit me.
Okay, you ready? Question number 4. This one's all about setting boundaries. What strategic boundaries have you set? Now, you might be thinking, boundaries. Don't those, like, stifle creativity and innovation?
Yeah.
But actually, it's quite the opposite.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Think of boundaries like the guardrails on a bowling alley.
Okay.
They keep you on track, right?
Right.
They prevent you from going into the gutter. But within those rails, you have the freedom to try different techniques and aim for a strike.
I like that analogy. Yeah.
Oh.
So setting clear boundaries can actually foster innovation and entrepreneurial thinking, especially when, growth and profits are under pressure.
Exactly. They give your team a very clear understanding of what's acceptable and what's off limits. And that allows them to actually focus their creative energy within those parameters.
So what are some examples of companies that have done this well?
Well, a great example is Steve Jobs' decision to forbid Apple from developing a PDA. He argued that this restriction actually allowed them to focus their resources on the iPod, which we all know became a revolutionary product.
Yeah. So sometimes saying no to certain things can be incredibly liberating.
Right, and then there's Wells Fargo. They had really strong boundaries in place that helped them weather the 2008-2009 financial crisis.
Right.
I mean, they refused to engage in risky lending practices like low documentation mortgage loans that brought down a lot of other banks. They even refused to lend money to Berkshire Hathaway at below market rates, even though it meant potentially losing future business from Warren Buffett.
Wow. So they were really committed to their boundaries.
Yeah, but guess what? It earned them Buffett's respect because it showed that they had the discipline to stick to their principles, even when they were facing pressure from powerful people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So these examples show that clear boundaries can guide your team, help manage risk, and even enhance your reputation. So the takeaway is to consider what strategic boundaries you need to put in place, to keep your business on track and aligned with your core values.
Exactly. Now, you ready for question number 5? This one's a bit intriguing.
Hit me.
How are you generating creative tension? Don't worry. This isn't about creating, like, a stressful work environment. It's about fostering a healthy level of pressure that pushes people to think differently and come up with innovative solutions.
So like a controlled burn, right?
Exactly.
That clears out the underbrush and allows new growth to flourish.
Yes, and the article provides a whole menu of techniques for generating this creative tension.
Yeah.
One way is by setting what they call stretch goals, those really ambitious targets that force people to stretch their thinking.
Okay, yeah. They also talk about performance rankings, which can create healthy competition if managed carefully.
Right, like GE under Jack Welch.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or Nike's use of performance scoreboards.
Right, right. To kind of fuel that friendly rivalry among your teams. I like that. What else?
Another technique is to create what they call spans of accountability that are greater than spans of control. Now, I know that sounds a little bit complicated, but
Yeah, break that down for me.
okay, it basically means holding people accountable for outcomes that they can't completely control.
Okay.
So like giving someone responsibility for increasing customer satisfaction, even though they don't directly manage all of the touch points with the customer.
So it forces them to think outside the box.
Yeah. They have to collaborate with others. They have to come up with innovative solutions.
Yeah.
They use the example of Tom Siebel. He tied his manager's bonuses to customer satisfaction, even though no single manager had complete control over all the factors influencing it.
Oh, interesting.
But it worked. It pushed them to work together and find new ways to improve the customer experience.
Yeah, clever. So what are some other techniques?
Another technique is allocating costs. For example, charging departments for corporate overhead.
Okay.
This can motivate them to find more efficient ways of working together. JP Morgan Chase does this under Jamie Dimon.
Interesting.
And finally, there's this idea of cross-unit teams and matrix accountability.
Okay.
This involves assigning people to multiple teams. This can bring fresh perspectives and break down silos.
Right. Get people working together who normally wouldn't.
Exactly. Companies like ADB, Novartis, and P&G have experimented with this, but it does have potential drawbacks like slower decision-making. So, there are pluses and minuses.
It's always the trade-off.
Exactly. So the key takeaway here is that there are many ways to generate creative tension, but the key is to find that right balance between challenge and support. Too little pressure and people just stagnate. Too much and they burn out.
Yeah, you got to find that sweet spot. All right, what's next?
Okay, on to question number 6, and this is a crucial one. How committed are your employees to helping each other? Because even with the most brilliant strategy and the most innovative ideas, execution depends on people working together effectively.
And it goes beyond just working on a team, right? It's about having a deep level of commitment to each other's success.
Exactly. The article highlights 4 key attributes that foster this kind of commitment. They are pride and purpose, group identification, trust, and fairness.
Okay, let's break those down. What's pride and purpose?
Pride and purpose is all about having that shared mission, something that everyone can believe in and rally behind. It gives people a sense of meaning. It motivates them to contribute to something bigger than
Yeah,
themselves.
it's like a higher purpose.
Exactly. Think about organizations like the Marines with their Semper Fidelis motto, or Merck with their putting patients first value. These are more than just slogans, right?
Right.
They are guiding principles that inspire and unite people.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, group identification. That's about feeling like you belong to something special, like you're part of an elite team. And that can foster a sense of loyalty and a willingness to go above and beyond for your fellow team members.
So it's about feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself, but also something exclusive, something special.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it. What about trust?
Yeah, trust. That is absolutely essential for any kind of collaboration. When you trust your colleagues, you're more likely to be vulnerable, to share ideas freely, and to rely on each other for support.
Right, and that trust is built through consistent actions, right? Companies that promote transparency, open communication, fair treatment, they tend to have higher levels of trust among their employees.
Exactly. And they give an example of Nucor Steel. They have a profit-sharing program that aligns the interests of workers and executives, which helps build that trust.
Oh, interesting.
And then finally, fairness, which is crucial for maintaining morale and preventing resentment. When people perceive that they are being treated fairly, they're more likely to be cooperative and supportive of each other.
Right. It makes sense. That means fair compensation, but it also means fair treatment in terms of opportunities, recognition, and decision-making.
Exactly. And Southwest Airlines, again, demonstrates this principle. They have a policy that executive pay raises cannot be proportionally larger than other employees' raises.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it really reinforces this sense of equality and shared sacrifice. And when times are tough, executives take pay cuts, along with everybody else.
It's leading by example, showing that everyone's in it together.
Exactly. So creating this kind of collaborative culture, it takes time, it takes effort.
Right.
But the payoff can be huge.
Absolutely. When you have a team of people who are truly committed to helping each other, it's like having a superpower, you know?
I love that. It's true. It allows you to overcome challenges, innovate faster, and achieve results that wouldn't be possible otherwise.
It's the secret sauce that separates good companies from great ones. All right, what's the last question? The big one.
Okay, and now we're at question number 7. The one that might keep you up at night. What strategic uncertainties keep you awake at night? Because let's face it, every strategy is based on assumptions about the future.
Right.
And those assumptions are bound to be wrong at some point.
Absolutely. So this isn't about predicting the future perfectly, but rather about identifying potential blind spots and being prepared to adapt. It's about constantly looking around and seeing if maybe our assumptions are outdated.
Exactly. And they give the example of Al Mulally when he took over as CEO of Ford. He noticed that executives were afraid to admit to problems. They were always focusing on the good stuff.
Like putting on a good show, huh?
Right, their presentations were all about their successes. They were coded green. There was no mention of challenging.
Oh, wow. So no yellows and reds.
Exactly.
Mm.
So Mulally, he encouraged a culture of honesty where people felt comfortable bringing up problems, even if it meant showing some red on their reports. And that way, they were actually able to address the challenges head on, right?
Yeah. Transparency is key.
And another great example is Goldman Sachs. They used their profit and loss system, their P&L, to proactively identify and respond to emerging risks in the mortgage market.
Oh, okay.
This was before the 2008 financial crisis.
Oh, so they were ahead of the curve.
They were constantly asking themselves what could go wrong
Yeah.
and adjusting their strategy accordingly.
So it's like having a built-in early warning system for your business.
Exactly. So think about your own plans and your own goals. What are the underlying assumptions that you're making?
Yeah.
What could change in the world that might throw you off course?
Right, because the future is unpredictable. But by thinking about these potential uncertainties, we can be more prepared.
We can be more adaptable when those curveballs inevitably come our way. This article has given us a lot to think about. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's a great reminder that strategy isn't just about making plans. It's about asking the right questions, challenging assumptions, and fostering that culture of collaboration.
And these questions aren't just for like CEOs or business leaders. They're relevant for anyone who's trying to achieve a goal.
Absolutely.
Like whether it's a personal project or a team initiative or a company-wide strategy.
It provides a framework for thinking critically, making tough choices, and ultimately executing your vision more effectively. It's a great framework. And, while those uncertainties we just talked about are crucial to consider, I think there's another side to that coin.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this. What are you thinking?
Well, we've talked a lot about identifying potential threats, those
Yeah.
what could go wrong scenarios. But what about the flip side? What about the potential opportunities? The ones that might be hiding within those uncertainties.
That's a great point. It's so easy to get caught up in risk aversion, right?
Yeah.
That we forget to look for the potential upside. The what could go right even better than we imagined scenarios.
Exactly. It reminds me of that quote, I think it's attributed to Helen Keller. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision.
Oh, I love that.
We need to be able to see beyond the immediate threats and actually envision the possibilities that might emerge from uncertainty.
I love that. So it's about having that balance between caution and ambition,
Yeah.
between protecting ourselves from downside risk and being open to upside potential.
Exactly.
Sometimes the very thing that keeps us up at night could be the seed of our next breakthrough.
Absolutely. Think about it. Many groundbreaking innovations, successful businesses, they were born out of somebody daring to, explore the unknown, to venture into territory that other people thought was too risky.
It's like that old saying, the greatest danger is not taking the risk.
Right.
Sometimes playing it safe can be the riskiest move of all.
Exactly.
Now remember that final question from the article.
Yeah.
The one about employee commitment. Let's revisit that for a moment. It highlighted those 4 key attributes: pride and purpose, group identification, trust, and fairness.
Right. Those are the elements that create, a truly collaborative and supportive work environment.
Right.
Where people feel empowered to take risks, to innovate.
Exactly. And when you combine that kind of environment with a mindset that embraces uncertainty as a potential source of opportunity, I feel like that's when the magic happens.
It's like creating a fertile ground for innovation to flourish. You've got the seeds of great ideas, the right conditions for growth, and a supportive team to nurture them along the way.
Ooh, that's a beautiful analogy.
And speaking of nurturing growth, let's go back to those 7 questions for a moment.
Okay.
They've given us a lot to think about. What are some of your key takeaways so far?
Well, For me, one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of simplicity and focus.
Hmm.
It's so easy to get overwhelmed with all the things we could be doing
Right.
that we lose sight of what truly matters.
Yeah, I completely agree. The article really emphasizes the need to identify our primary customer, define our core values, track the most critical metrics, set clear boundaries, generate healthy tension, foster collaboration, and of course, be prepared for the unexpected.
It's a lot to consider, but it really does all boil down to focusing on the essentials, you know,
Yeah.
and making conscious choices about where to direct our energy.
It's about saying no to the distractions
Right
and
on.
yes to the things that align with our strategic goals and core values.
I like that.
Yeah.
And another key takeaway for me is the importance of asking tough questions.
Yes.
The kind of questions that make us squirm a little bit.
Right.
The ones we might be tempted to avoid.
Totally, because those are the questions that lead to the most valuable insights.
Yeah.
And they help us identify, the blind spots in our thinking.
Absolutely. And, it's so easy to get caught up in our own assumptions and biases, to surround ourselves with people who agree with us. But that can lead to complacency and stagnation. We need to seek out different perspectives. We need to challenge our assumptions.
The article reminds us that strategy is not a static document,
Right.
It's a living, breathing process.
I like that.
It's about constantly adapting to the ever-changing world around us, and that requires us to be open to new information and willing to adjust our course.
And it's about having the courage to make tough decisions even when they're unpopular
Right.
or go against conventional wisdom.
Right.
Sometimes the best path forward is the one less traveled.
Absolutely. And remember, this is where those clearly defined core values come in.
Yeah,
They act as our guiding principles. They help us navigate those tricky situations where there's no easy answer.
exactly. And this is also where strong leadership comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders need to create a culture where, it encourages that open communication, where people feel safe to voice their concerns, to challenge the status quo,
Yeah.
to propose new ideas, even if they go against the grain.
It's about fostering that environment of psychological safety, where people trust that they won't be punished for speaking up or for making mistakes.
Right. And that kind of environment is essential for innovation and growth.
Yeah.
When people feel safe to experiment, to take risks, they're more likely to come up with those groundbreaking ideas.
And that brings us to the final and perhaps most crucial point, the role of people.
Ah, yes, the human element.
Right. We can have the most brilliant strategies, the most sophisticated systems, the most cutting-edge technology, but without the right people, it all falls apart.
It does. The article emphasizes the importance of people.
Absolutely.
It's about empowering your team to think critically, to collaborate effectively, to embrace the challenges and the opportunities that come with pursuing a shared vision.
Exactly. So, dear listener, what are you going to do with all this newfound wisdom?
Yeah, don't just let it sit there in your brain. Put it into practice. Use these questions to spark conversations with your team, reevaluate your own plans, and maybe even discover some hidden opportunities that you hadn't considered before.
Because, as we've learned today, the future is uncertain, but by asking the right questions and fostering the right mindset, we can navigate that uncertainty with confidence and maybe even, a little bit of excitement.
A little bit of excitement, I like that.
Because who knows what amazing discoveries lie just beyond those uncertainties that keep us up at night, right?
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into this fascinating article. We've covered a lot of ground today, from identifying our primary customer to embracing uncertainty as a potential source of opportunity.
It's been a great discussion, and I hope our listeners feel equipped with some valuable insights and tools to apply to their work, their life.
Me too. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave our listener with a final thought.
Oh, tell me.
We've talked a lot about strategy from a business perspective, but these principles can be applied to any area of life.
Right. Whether you're planning a career change or launching a creative project.
Or even just trying to improve your personal well-being,
Yeah, absolutely. These questions can help you clarify your goals, identify potential obstacles,
Yeah.
develop a more resilient approach.
It's about approaching life with a strategic mindset, but also with that sense of curiosity and open-mindedness, a willingness to embrace the unknown.
Because sometimes the greatest opportunities are hidden in plain sight, right? Just waiting for us to ask the right questions.
And to have the courage to explore that uncharted territory.
Beautifully said. And with that, I think we've given our listener plenty to ponder.
Yeah, I think so too. We've explored the 7 questions for stress testing your strategy. We delved into the importance of embracing uncertainty And we highlighted the power of building a collaborative and supportive team.
It's been a fantastic journey of discovery. I hope our listener feels inspired to apply these insights to their own work and life.
Me too. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, it's amazing how these principles can apply to, well, so many different parts of life.
It really does. It speaks to the power of having a framework for thinking strategically, whether you're, running a company or just tackling a personal challenge.
Exactly. It's about breaking down those complex problems into like smaller, more manageable pieces.
Yeah.
And then figuring out the most effective way to approach them, right?
And it's about having the self-awareness to recognize our own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
To know when to seek help, when to delegate tasks.
Yeah, we can't do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
And trying to do so often just leads to burnout and frustration, right?
Absolutely. It's about building a strong team, whether it's in our professional life or our personal life.
Yeah.
And leveraging each other's unique skills and perspectives.
And that reminds me of another key takeaway from this article, the importance of communication.
Yes. Open, honest, respectful communication. It's essential for, building trust, right?
Yeah.
Fostering a collaborative environment.
Yeah. We need to be able to share our ideas freely, but also to listen attentively to others. Be willing to consider different viewpoints.
It's about creating that space where everyone feels heard, valued, where there's no fear of judgment or anything for speaking up.
Right, exactly. So that kind of psychological safety is crucial for innovation and growth.
Totally. Because when people feel safe to express themselves, they're more likely to take risks, challenge the status quo, and come up with those creative solutions.
So, dear listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay, lay it on me. What is it?
We've talked about the importance of stress testing our strategies, identifying those potential weaknesses and blind spots.
Right, asking ourselves the tough questions like what could go wrong and what am I assuming that might not be true?
Exactly. But remember, it's not just about identifying the problems. It's about finding solutions.
It's about using those insights to make our plans more robust, to make our teams more resilient, and, our approach to life more adaptable.
So if you go forward, remember to, embrace those challenges that come your way,
Yeah.
but to also see them as opportunities for growth and learning.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to take those calculated risks. Step outside your comfort zone.
Because sometimes the greatest rewards come from venturing into the unknown.
Beautifully said. And with that, I think we've given our listener plenty to ponder. I really enjoyed this.
Me too. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.